just last year with Rizzoli, which is right here. Bill Cunningham Was There. And we are here tonight to experience and celebrate this book. So Stephen and John's first New York presentation of its publication. And we are also thrilled that Amy Fine Collins will be making a few opening remarks and sharing some reminiscence that she has of Bill Cunningham before Stephen and John begin. After the program, there will be a book signing and reception upstairs in the rotunda, and the books will be on sale from our bookshop. So I'd like to take a few moments right now to thank the former museum trustee, Laura LaFara Freeman and James L. Freeman, for their tremendous generosity in supporting tonight's program. So we hope that you'll return to the museum next month for a couple of programs. On Monday, May 9th, we have the museum's 2022 Robert A. and Elizabeth R. Jeffy Distinguished Lecturer, and the author and litigator, Keon Julie Wong, will be discussing her New York Times best-selling book and memoir, Beautiful Country, which really, it narrates her childhood journey from China to Brooklyn. And then on Wednesday, May 11th, we will mark the return of our spring symposium and luncheon, honoring the designer, fashion designer Norma Kamali, with our City of Design Award, featuring her in a conversation with Sarah Brown. So if you're interested in any of these programs, you can find them on our website at mcny.org, and you look under the events section. So before we get started, I need to give you just a few house pointers. So we'd like everyone to silence any of your devices that buzz and beep or make any other noises. But we always encourage our guests to post on the museum's website on social media, which is the hashtag MCNYLive. So we're also asking people to keep on their mask for the duration of the talk. Since both of our speakers, though, have happily tested negative today for COVID, they will be in conversation without mask. And then, as I mentioned, there will be the book signing after the program where we'll be serving wine. Of course, you're free to lower your mask when you're drinking wine, but we ask that you keep it on otherwise. So now, it is my great honor to introduce our speakers. Amy Fine Collins was a special correspondent to Vanity Fair for over 25 years, and now she's an editor-at-large at Airmail and contributing editor to World of Interiors. She's an arbiter and owner of the International Best Dressed list. She was inducted into its Hall of Fame herself in 1996, and she has written or contributed to over a dozen books. Her most recent book is the International Best Dressed List, the official story, and she's now in development with a documentary series on that. So John Kurdewan is the production artist at the New York Times, and he was a friend of Bill Cunningham. Kurdewan worked closely with Cunningham for over more than 20 years as his right hand to design his On the Street and Evening Hour pages for the New York Times, and I know we'll hear more about that. Steven Stolman is a designer, author, and observer of all things stylish. Stolman developed his own collection of resort wear before serving as the president of the textile house Scalamandre. So now, Stolman is an author, lecturer, and brand strategist for businesses in the design and decor sphere. So now it's my great honor to welcome Amy, John, and Steven to the stage. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Whitney. At the tail end of the 1980s, Jeffrey Bean began to dominate my wardrobe and, to a certain extent, my life, and Bill recorded the process. Before long, Bill's pictures of me took on a life of their own. His columns in the New York Times, the Evening Hours, and On the Street were so powerful and popular and well-read that I became better known for Bill's pictures of me than for my work at Vanity Fair. From 40 paces, Bill could discern the exact textile, texture, season, year of anything I wore. He was the living memory of fashion. And as he photographed me, we would often discuss these recherche matters together. But Bill was never really concerned about the person or their background. For him, it was always all about the clothes. The most outre or louche characters could enrapture him every bit as much as the most rarefied avatars of elegance. Anything that stimulated his optic nerves was fair game. One night at the Pierre Hotel, Bill nearly lost his reason over a black evening dress I was wearing that was embellished with an oval lace apron, which, with his eidetic memory, he instantly recognized to be a tribute to the designer Mambochet, who had invented a similar design like half a century before. And Bill, of course, proceeded to recall it for me in the minutest detail, as if he had just seen it hours ago. So Bill started setting up a shot, as he often did, like directing me to stand closer to an urn in a niche with hand signals and smiles. And he started snapping away. And as he was taking his pictures, a bevy of style section hopefuls made a beeline to where I was standing, photobombing us, and they in turn attracted secondary and tertiary society photographers, all of whom ended up blocking Bill's sight lines. Enraged, Bill whispered angrily to me behind his hand, "They're stealing my picture." And he was furious, and he was right to be angry, because Bill, and only Bill, was a genius at detecting the telling gesture, the visual pun, the accidental echoes between a decorative object, a painting, a flower, an architectural element, and the woman standing beside it. Of all the fleeting and friendly words that Bill and I exchanged over the years, the ones that linger most indelibly are those that he uttered at the opening of Nan Kempner's posthumous exhibition at the Costume Institute. Observing how transfixed I was by the late Clothes Horse's enormous couture collection, Bill leaned in to impart his wisdom. "Child," he said, "never get rid of anything." So, thank you, guys. You tell the rest of the story.
My God, bright light.
I mean, how good looking is this guy?
Thank you.
Amy, thank you. My heart is full from listening to you. I think both of us are a little choked up because your words are so authentic and spoken with such love. And thank you all for coming out to see us. It's great to be
Thank you.
back in New York in front of a real live audience. This has been quite the roller coaster ride, and I, for one, am not one of those nuts that loves roller coasters or anything else that scares the you-know-what out of me. So all I can say is hope springs eternal. The last time John and I were up here on this stage was in March of 2019. When we were just starting to float the idea of a book about our dear Bill to a few publishers. Our thought process was that the more we talked together and in front of folks like you, the more crystallized our ideas for the book would become. And while ultimately that strategy worked, the process was, putting it mildly, daunting. I cannot tell you how many garden paths we were led down, only to be devastated by a rejection at the end. But it's because of people like you and Amy, who have been unwavering in your appreciation and remembrances of Bill, that we soldiered on until finally, Rizzoli made us an offer in August of 2019. And that was the start of a 20-month pregnancy, equal to that of an African elephant. But we are both tremendously proud of what we created, and
grateful.
And I hope you'll agree. John, you had the unique experience of working by Bill Cunningham's side for the lion's share of his career at the Times. Now, let's remind everyone how you found yourself at the Times almost, 25 years ago?
25 years ago, I worked at the Asbury Park Press down in New Jersey. And then the New York Times went to color, so they needed people that knew how to do color corrections for the newspaper. And that's how I got the job. And then I ran into Bill.
And that started this marvelous collaboration. But after Bill died, John desperately wanted to write a book, but wasn't exactly sure where to start. Fortunately, a mutual friend put us together. And as you know, because I'm sure some of you were there, we began with a series of lectures just like this one. It was my feeling that out of those conversations, a book would emerge. With a foreword by the renowned artist Ruben Toledo, and here he is with his late wife, Isabel, the most otherworldly fashion designer. Isabel is probably best known for the inaugural outfit she designed for Michelle Obama, along with thousands of other dresses and gowns that just defy description. But John, let's start from the beginning, which for our purposes is when you were assigned to work for Bill exclusively. That was, 10 years into your time at the...
It was 10 years into my time at the Times. What happened, Bill would do his pages. Bill was a control freak. And
yeah, sticks. You want to keep that?
Perfect.
Good.
Bill was a control freak, and a lot of the art directors wanted to get things done right away. But Bill, if you ever saw our Instagram post, Bill likes to take 1,000 photos of everything, and he can remember in great detail where everything was. Art directors don't have that kind of time, so as a joke, they put us together. It was supposed to be a joke, but it turned into a great friendship that we both cherished.
I think there isn't a single person here who isn't familiar with Bill, because just like Isabel Toledo's dresses, he defied description. He was a photographer, obviously, but also a journalist and a fashion historian. His knowledge of the mechanics of fashion and the creative process of designing a garment and its place in society were encyclopedic. John, you weren't particularly aware of fashion before
I had no
Bill came into
clue
your life.
about fashion, and Bill was always laughing about that because I would say pocketbook, and he said, "Who told you that?" And I said, "My mother." So with that, I started to look at everything differently because of Bill. And then Bill started getting worried when I started to recognize what he was looking at. I said, "Oh, it's the lace you're looking at. Are you getting into this?" I said, "Look, don't worry about that other part. I know what he was thinking."
Well, you clearly have a very different view of fashion now, and here you and Bill are taking a much-needed break at the Central Park Luncheon.
That was the first time Bill ate something. He was feeling a little bit weak. His blood pressure was going down, and I was going to steal some bread off the table. So I texted a friend of ours, Diana, and I said, "Do you think anyone would be upset if I take bread off the table?" She said, where are you at?" I said, "I'm passing a bar." And that's when Bill came over and she gave us food. They sent us over a plate of food, and Bill ate it.
But this is how the two of you usually spent your days at the Times.
Intense.
I can see it in the expression in your eyes. And this is what you created. At least 2 times a week, you would take Bill's thousands of photos and turn them into these extraordinary collages. There was the iconic On the Street feature that was pure fashion, whether found on the runways of Paris or New York or the corner of 57th Street and 5th Avenue. And then there were the wonderful evening hours, which was a visual chronicle of the past week's social and philanthropic events. John, did you prefer working on one or the other?
Well, I prefer the party page because it went quicker because there was only so much room. And Bill had to show what was happening at the event. It was amazing when Bill didn't understand anything about deadlines. That was my job to worry. I would get the phone calls and Bill never answered the phone, so I was the bad cop, he was the good cop.
And this is a printout of one of your pages, and you can see Bill would scribble notes to John about what to move or what to do, or some little personal note. He
would go down and start dealing with the copy people, as he called them, and they would always tell him he was spelling someone's name wrong, and he had the notepad where they wrote their own names, and they go, no, they don't know what they're doing. The copy people were fun.
So what are we seeing here?
This is when Bill came back from Paris. He finally went digital. And, that's not that one. That is Bill with his finger smudging my monitor, and then I finally gave him a chopstick.
Because they would have Chinese takeout for lunch often, and so John said you'd find like beef and broccoli on your screen.
Bill would be talking, and it would be either on my screen or on my arm.
So the chopsticks worked. And this is what you guys created, almost works of art in themselves. This is the largest page you ever did. It's about 90 images from how many photos?
That was that was over 6,000 images.
All culled from Paris. And what you need to understand is that as Bill got older, he became more prolific because he was unencumbered by the limits of film and processing fees. He became this wellspring of fashion and society photography.
Bill would do, he bought every film himself. He paid for it to be developed, and then he would bring it back to the Times for us to put it in the screen. Sorry.
There, pull it up. What a lot of people don't realize is that Bill had a personal life, and it was a full one. He had money, he had friends, very good friends, very faithful friends, a small circle, but very, very real, and an apartment overlooking Central Park. Tell us about where Bill is right now in this shot.
He's at Mrs. Sherman's apartment. She lived on the second floor on Park Avenue. That's when they all moved over from Carnegie Hall. And I was fortunate enough to see his apartment at Carnegie Hall. And that was incredible that he even lived in that. But at Carnegie Hall, he moved from room to room. He gave up his one room to Antonio Lopez. And then he knew whoever and everyone at Carnegie Hall. The great story.
Isn't this Thanksgiving?
That's our famous Thanksgiving Day parade that we would go to every year.
This was Bill's real family at the Times. You celebrated every birthday together. And what are you doing here?
Well, that was his first brand new bike that we all chipped into. Me and a couple of other guys in my department chipped in and brought him a European bike that he could step into instead of trying to get his leg over as he was getting older. And he was shocked that we got him a bike. Usually he didn't want it. For first few months, he never rode it because he was afraid someone was going to steal it.
You were truly a team. One of your fans even had these adorable dolls made of you too.
And of course, when he was in his mood, I would take his doll and beat it, smash it against
Voodoo doll. Now, my introduction to Bill occurred sometime in the early 90s when I was a worker bee designer on 7th Avenue. I would see him at events, and every once in a while he would take my picture, and they never ran. Until years later, when I finally had my own label, and he marginally knew who I was, but more on that later. John, I love this photo of a middle-aged Bill walking along the Rue de Rivoli in Paris in front of his great friend Louise Doctor. Tell us about who was Louise?
Louise Doctor, a great friend of Bill's. They've been together for many years, like over 40 years. I believe he met them in Europe, in London. Louise and Terry Doctor
And she was an executive secretary to banks, I think.
She was known, how she was introduced to me first by Bill, was Lovely Louise, and Terry was known as Terrible Terry. And Terry would call, and sometimes Bill being one of his moods, and I had to hang up on him. I'm like, Terry's on the phone, hang up. And he would call. 2 days later, get Terry on the phone. I'm like, we hung up on him, but that's how Bill was. When he was concentrating, there would be like a test for the fire alarm, and Bill says, don't worry, you'll carry me. I said, I'm going to throw you through that window over there. I'm going out.
A lot has been written about Bill's early days as a photojournalist and living in the studios above Carnegie Hall. That's the stuff of fashion legend. But that's where he did become great friends with many of his neighbors, including Antonio Lopez, the groundbreaking fashion illustrator. That's Antonio in the dark jacket and tie, upper left, and Pat Cleveland.
Yeah. No picture.
Oh, picture went off. Hello in the booth.
Yeah, they're working on it.
They're working on it. Okay, well, talk amongst yourselves. Does anyone have any questions for John while we're waiting for...
My goodness.
What do we have to do? Okay, we have a question.
He had intense moods when it wasn't working out the way he thought it should. He was very passionate about fashion, and he was very passionate about doing the job. That's all that mattered to Bill. It wasn't about a celebrity or anything. He would come back, and I would laugh when he would say, this person followed me around. Who the hell is it? I'm like, that's Drew Barrymore. I'm like, and he goes, oh, do we like her? And I said, yeah, we liked her. And then when he found out she was working for the ASCPA or helping the dogs, he made sure he photographed her every year after that. And Tom Hanks followed him one time too. He was freaking out about that guy. Like,
We're up.
Sorry.
Bill never devoted an entire page to one person, with three notable exceptions. Once, upon the death of Brooke Astor, the Queen of New York Society and Philanthropy, Anna Wintour, you all know who she is, and this extraordinary fashionista, former Harper's Bazaar editor Marilyn Kirshner, who dresses almost exclusively in garments that she finds at thrift shops and consignment stores. Again, much has been said about Bill's incredible street photography, and there have been books and movies, some authorized, some not. An extraordinary book that came out in the fall of 2019 called On the Street, compiled by the New York Times, and that traced Bill's work by decade and trend with essays by fashion's A-list. It's encyclopedic, it's marvelous. We knew we couldn't compete with that, nor did we want to. But one thing we did have, what John had, was the blessing of Arthur Sulzberger Jr., the former chairman of the Times company, to write a book. His only request was that we waited until after the Times' own book had come out, which of course we did. Rizzoli also guided us, and I'm using that word in the nicest sense. At times with a stronger hand than we might have liked initially, but they knew what kind of books people wanted to buy, and they wanted this book to be successful, so they funneled us towards a very specific focus. They wanted to see pretty people in gorgeous clothes at glamorous parties, which a lot of us will immediately recognize as a descriptive attached to another iconic photographer, Slim Aarons, who said he took pictures of attractive people doing attractive things in attractive places. The big difference is that all of Slim Aarons' pictures were posed. With a few exceptions, like Amy spoke about, Bill's weren't. He captured the moment as it happened. So our book is a more intimate story, more about Bill's fascination with the people who made society tick and the noble organizations that they supported. Night after night, with some kind of built-in radar, Bill would find the events that mattered and just magically show up, sometimes for hours, sometimes for just minutes. But if Bill Cunningham was there, you knew you were at the right place at the right time. And if you see that chubby little smiling face in the bow tie, that's me at a party Bunny Williams and John Rizzoli threw in honor of a book that I wrote about the Kips Bay Show House. It was probably, one of a handful of times that I was ever photographed by Bill.
The other funny part about that, sometimes Bill got turned away by the security guards, and he would call them thugs. Those thugs, and then you see these beautifully dressed, as Bill would tell the story, these beautifully dressed women running down the stairs to get Bill to come back. And he would say, no, I have other events to cover, and he wouldn't go back.
Well, this is one of the events, of course, that Bill loved to cover, originally starting with the first Monday in May, and I think the rebirth of this is happening soon, Amy, the Met Gala, to support the museum's Costume Institute. I think they did half a little while ago, and they're doing another half shortly. It's a blockbuster of celebrity and fashion and fabulousness, chaired and controlled with an iron fist by Anna Wintour. But that's Diane von Furstenberg in the white and silver dress. The theme was the architectural fashions of the late Charles James, and guests either wore vintage James gowns or new ones inspired by his aesthetic. Look at a gaggle of gals in gowns. And a sensational dress inspired by James' famous cloverleaf gown, mixed with more than a tiny bit of Hollywood glamour goddess style. The entertainer, Rihanna, with a henna tattoo on her hand, and the British designer Stella McCartney.
I was fortunate enough to go with Bill to the Met Gala one day. He just wanted me to go. And Stella was coming in with a group of women. Bill said, "Oh, can I take your photo?" And the one model didn't stop, and it was like she yelled at this model. She got back in line, took the photo, and goes. And then Bill said, "Is that Kardashian girl?" And we were looking from the back, and I said, "Oh, yes, it is."
Look at the feather work on this incredible gown on the actress Zoe Saldana. John, this was one of those rare setup shots, and you helped style it, didn't you?
Well, he told me to pull the train. He said, "Go over there and pull the train." I was like, okay. So yeah, in that aspect, yeah, I did help in that a little bit.
Amy, there you are with the designer Tom Brown and Neil Patrick Harris and his husband. You all look stunning, but what a beautiful, beautiful dress. At the epicenter of it all, Anna Wintour with Australian filmmaker Baz Luhrmann. At every event, casual or formal, the ladies in their gowns would turn into obedient school children for Bill's camera. Did you have a name for this kind of shot?
No, I didn't have a good name for it, no.
I love this. Bill was expert at recording expression and gesture, not just fashion. And if I'm not mistaken, this lovely and very clever lady arranged to have her own surprise wedding during the cocktail hour at the New York Botanical Garden Gala. So you got to admit, it's certainly an original idea and thrifty. The gala pages always manage to have a theme. In this case, the color orange. Now, how did you and Bill decide what the theme would be?
I would make hundreds of prints. We would lay them out on the counter. We took up a lot of space at the New York Times. And he would just say, "Let's do orange today." Or it was a white. And I kept on saying, "Let's stop doing the black and white. We're always doing black and white. We have color. We're allowed to do color, Bill." So then he started doing color. But for the longest time, the party page was done in black and white until I explained to Bill, it doesn't cost any extra for us to do it in color. He goes, you mean I could do it in color? I don't know. I opened Pandora's box.
I used to have 7 little stores, including one here in the city and one in Southampton, and we made these taffeta ball skirts. And one year, an awful lot of gals wore them to a big party in Southampton, and wouldn't you know it, Bill took notice, and he gave me the entire page. We were talking backstage with Amy about how, in his own very, very quiet way, Bill impacted thousands upon thousands of designers and people working in the industry just by noticing. And he did it very, very subtly and very anonymously, and it was always a surprise. But he might have been aware of the power that he had, but he certainly never wielded it in any kind of conscious way, I don't think.
He never did it in that way. He did it in that way in one aspect, but what was always great for me working with Bill, somehow people would get my email address and send me, Bill took a photo of me, and I'm like, oh my God, lady, look. I had a black and white dress, and I had blonde hair. I said, well, you just narrowed everyone down.
Yeah.
But it was always nice.
4,000 other ladies at the party.
They described what they were wearing, and I said, well, if I was you, I would buy the New York Times this Sunday. And that's how I just left it. I would just respond like that.
Even though the feature was called The Evening Hours, a lot of events happened during the day. Here's the annual luncheon to benefit the Museum of the Fashion Institute of Technology. This one in honor of the late designer Oscar de la Renta. That's Michael Bloomberg, Annette de la Renta, and Henry Kissinger, so not a bad table. And Bill really couldn't be less impressed by celebrity. It just wasn't really on his radar screen. But he was a sucker for beauty, especially the beauty of nature and how it would sometimes intersect with the beauty of fashion. First as a milliner, then as a photojournalist, the theme of fabulous flowers was constantly woven through his work. This is his great friend Diana Demena in a magnificently embroidered floral dress. The model Karolina Krakova in an exploded floral gown at the Met Gala, having a fainting moment. Models do that, you know. Anna Winter and her daughter Bee in pretty springtime dresses. And the gala lineup at the Conservatory Gala with designer Carolina Herrera in canary yellow with black floral embroidery. He loved pink. He understood the flattering qualities, and his archives, when you look at them in color, they reveal how he was consistently drawn to pretty pink clothes. The model Elizabeth Hurley at the Breast Cancer Research Fund Gala at the much-missed Waldorf Astoria. Amanda Ross in a flurry of pink feathers. Looks like she got into a fight with a flamingo. Socialite Jean Shafarov, practically swallowed by a mountain of pleated pink chiffon. John, would you say that Jean was made frequent appearances in the column?
Yes, she did, and I have my opinions, but that's where Bill.
He didn't have favorites, but
he didn't have favorites.
I think if you consistently showed up in one big dramatic dress after another,
what he liked is the average person paying for their own dress. They weren't the designers. They weren't advertising for the designers. That's what he admired about the women of New York, is that mostly they brought their own dresses, and he was always amazed by that. And if you kept a vintage dress, he loved that even more so. He would look at a person and look in great detail on the stitching. A woman from Australia came by one time at the New York Times, and she had a Valentino dress on, and he went nuts. He was just eyeing it like a fine tailor.
The marchers in the annual Pride Parade in the shortest of pink shorts and sheer wings. Bill was one of the first photographers to cover the gay community. And when it came to his subjects, he was absolutely gender blind, race blind. All he cared about was capturing the moment and creating both a beautiful and accurate report of what he saw. But any discussion about the life and legacy of Bill Cunningham has to acknowledge that his first career and his true passion was that of a milliner. And for that reason, the annual Frederick Law Olmsted Awards luncheon that benefits the Central Park Conservancy was very near and dear to his heart. Imagine over 1,000 smartly dressed ladies and a few men all wearing hats. Every year, for Bill, he was the kid in a candy store. Here we have a stylish gal wearing a replica of the Central Park Dairy on top of her head. John, here you are with...
In my white pimp outfit. I was there with Bill.
And with Diana.
And Diana.
Deborah Roberts, also, you would know her as Mrs. Al Roker, in beautiful shades of poppy red and pink. Two ladies that were frequently on Bill's radar screen, Gillian Miniter wearing a swarm of butterflies on top of her head, and Alex Liebenthal in a cartwheel fascinator. Alexander was the one who put us together.
Introduced us,
When did you first meet her?
Oh my God. And once again, Bill would give out my phone number to complete strangers and they would call. And the joke was, if Bill liked you enough, he gave you my number. If he didn't want to be bothered with you, he gave you his number. And
because he never answered it.
He never answered it. And there was over 2,000 messages on his machine. And they tried to tell me to go delete it. And I'm like, nah, I'm not getting involved.
Here's a chic combination of orchids, roses, and that old classic that just won't go away, the leopard print. And it isn't just the hats that are standouts at the Central Park Luncheon. Look at those fabulous floral sandals and that wonderful needlepoint bag. A froth of black lace extends like curls of smoke from a discreet little topper. And the classic Bill Cunningham lineup. Obviously, some of these ladies were lucky enough to snag centerpieces.
Before you move that one, the funny part was the lady in the center, she borrowed that from the doorman.
Oh, the hat.
So Bill loved it. Bill thought it was creative, so he made her get in the middle.
How great. I love this photo because it shows Bill's unerring ability to capture a moment. The lady is looking at her cell phone, most probably trying to locate her Uber driver, but take away the modern device, lengthen the skirt, and this could be a character straight out of My Fair Lady. A teacup full of flowers. Bill often got his best shots as the ladies were exiting the luncheon, waiting for their rides back to reality.
And we always felt bad because the ladies had to walk on that cobblestone. I don't know why they didn't just put like wood out there so they could
carpet or something.
Yeah.
I'm sure many ankles
were twisted.
John, here's one of your spectacular hat luncheon pages. How did you and Bill choose the shots?
We would spend hours, and when I say hours, I worked a 10-hour shift plus 2 hours. So a 12-hour shift working with Bill, just going over which one said something to each one of these photos. They all say something to us.
Even well into his 80s, Bill would take the Long Island Railroad out to the resort towns of the East End, from Fire Island to the Hamptons, to record the non-stop events that would take place from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and now beyond. If you've never been to Fire Island, it's a magical place. It's a narrow little sandbar off the south shore of Long Island. And it has a wide variety of residents, from old guard New York families to party-hardy college kids to beach folks to hardcore boaters. And it's also traditionally been home to the gay A-list, especially in the Pines. Although a lot of movers and shakers of fashion and media and finance. And it's also home to an annual dance festival that brings the greats of the American ballet world to perform against the background of a pounding surf. Here Bill caught the attendees making their way to the performance, but look at this shot. One of the performers wearing a sort of sail made from fabric and stays of plastic tubing. Further out in East Hampton, a group of synchronized swimmers, isn't that adorable, entertaining guests at a charity event. Sparkly dresses, blue blazers in Watermill. This gorgeous lady in pink is actually a member of the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater waiting to enter a gala in Watermill. Chris Rock. And Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs, whatever, at Bridgehampton Polo. And Grace Kelly's son, Prince Albert of Monaco, with the great editor and author Pamela Fiore, also at Bridgehampton Polo. Classic Hamptons, a lady named Summers Farkas at the annual Midsummer Gala to benefit the Parish Museum of Art. But there was one event that eclipsed all others and was clearly one of Bill's favorites. And this is a really good example of his ability to capture the flow of a dress. He called it le flou?
Yeah, he did. He loved the way when a woman walked, how the dress would drape her as she's strutting across Fifth Avenue or just casually walking.
Or she was sidewalk by a field.
Unaware of it. And what was always great when we had all the photos back at the office, when you can hear that first click and the lady's not sure, and then she hears the second click, and then you can see a smile coming over her face knowing, oh my God, that's Bill over there taking my photo. And then by the end, she has this big grin on her face. And then that's how we would choose which photo would go
on the left, you can see the great summer party to benefit Southampton Hospital. 2 gigantic tents in the middle of a field, 1,000 people, women in their finest summer gowns. On the right, another benefit for East Hampton's Guild Hall. But the hospital party had everything that Bill loved: color, pattern, drama. And Bill would return year after year, with one exception when he would go to Newport. But his arrival would send a wave of electricity through the party, and the most amazing thing would happen. And Amy knows this, because she's seen it too. All of a sudden, the best dressed gals would gather in front of the tent and tried their best to act nonchalant. But with one thing and only one thing on their minds: trying to catch Bill's eye. I think this shot was clearly set up because Bill loved showing similar dresses. Sometimes if he could find 2 ladies in the same dress, he especially loved that. Sorry if I'm giving you feedback. But this is Jean Shafroff and Joy Marks in similar.
I think it was Jean that came across the grass there and dragged her dress, and Bill freaked out on her. Bill yelled at her, and it had grass stains on it, and he was like, that's a $10,000 dress. You just walked across the grass.
She has others, trust me. Trust me. I can say this
with... The wastefulness, child, the wasteful.
I can say this with confidence because I was there, here with my husband Rich in our Southampton uniforms. Now, even though Bill lived in New York City for almost all of his life, he identified as a New Englander in so many ways. Am I giving you too much feedback? Are you hearing a little echo? Okay, we're okay? I don't want you to leave, with your ears ringing. From his Boston accent that he never lost to that common sense frugality that is so much a part of Yankee culture. And as a proud New Englander and lover of vintage style, Bill was especially fond of the history and aura of Newport. Its mansions and coaching weekends. And John, you went to Newport with Bill once, didn't you?
No, I went to the Gardner Museum. I went
in Boston.
In Boston. But Bill loved the Gilded Age, and he would call these, as they were known as, summer cottages. And this next slide, I think that's coming up, this is Mr. Ford. Mr. Ford remodeled his whole house back to its full restoration, and Bill was totally blown away by this grand entrance.
I think this was also used for the filming of the first version of The Great Gatsby with Robert Redford and Mia Farrow, and of course most recently for the HBO series The Gilded Age. Coaching weekend was always on Bill's summer rotation. Every 3 years, there'd be a gathering of authentic 19th century coaches, along with highly trained teams of horses, for an exhibition parade and a grand dinner dance. These people take this thing very seriously, and Bill loved it. Beautiful dresses, snazzy gent departing one of the luncheons. In Nahant, Massachusetts, this is on Boston's North Shore, they used to hold vintage dance weekends where guests would spend the entire time dressed in authentic 19th century clothes. Can you think of anything more delightful? It's here that Bill loved to catch people in poses that recalled William Merritt Chase's and John Singer Sargent's paintings. And Bill loved that museum in Boston.
Bill loved this event that took place every year. He would go up there, or then it started going every 2 years, and he would schedule to go up there at his own expense and go up there, and he would stay with a friend, and he would come back so happy. It was like, you won't believe what I found this year. It's the best. Every year was the best.
Back to Newport, one of its grandest galas, the Preservation Society of Newport County's annual summer gala, this time held at the Tea House, an adjacent tent on the grounds of Marble House. The theme was all things chinoiserie. It was entitled Dynasties and Dragons. Now, did Bill write his own headlines?
Yes. Yeah.
And his own copy?
Yeah. Until the copy people took over and would rewrite it for him, but mostly Bill did his own copy. He would have his own version of
he started really as a fashion journalist before he became a photojournalist, and his earliest work was not even in New York, but it was for the Chicago Tribune and the Philadelphia Inquirer, and he did it as a stringer, sending the columns from New York. The summer vintage jazz and music festivals that take place here in New York, or used to take place in the summertime, provided Bill with another perfect storm for his passions: authentic historical dress, the body in movement, and most importantly, the ability to document young people sharing his love for fashion and the practices of the past. Heidi Rosenau, the head of marketing for the Frick and a member of Bill's inner circle, she was one of the founders of the Governor's Island Jazz Festival, and if you follow her on Instagram, she's in a different vintage outfit every single day. She was very special to Bill.
Very special to Bill.
Not everyone attends these events in costume. Many just wear something fantastic, like this strapless romper and tiered straw fascinator that looks like the Guggenheim Museum. Look at the thought that these ladies put into their ensembles. The little striped satchel that matches the blue and white dress perfectly. I'm sure Bill noticed that. But for those that do drink the Kool-Aid of vintage dress, it's a marvelous trip back into time. Teddy Bear is clearly a nod to the novel Brideshead Revisited. Who knows the name? Aloysius, yes. Many truly go all out, such as this trio in shades of white. People even bring furniture and flowers, and they create these wonderful vignettes. And this all happens on Governor's Island. Meanwhile, uptown at Lincoln Center, that's Heidi Rosenau again, dancing with her husband Joe. The Midsummer Night's Swing evenings bring out the footloose in retro finery. And then evidenced by this remarkable collage of photographs that capture every bit of swinging style. How did he do this? I mean,
don't forget,
in his 80s.
He was biking. He didn't have an Uber. He didn't have a car. He biked everywhere. He went there.
To the tip of Manhattan.
If it gave back something to the city, that's his whole thing. He was always giving back something to the city. All these events gave back to the city and let the city know there's something else to do, and that's what was so amazing about his pages.
So after Bill died in 2016 following a stroke, the void left by his passing was immeasurable. His friends mourned, his readers felt lost, and for many a fancy lady in New York, there was simply no reason to get dressed up anymore. There still isn't. And I hope there will be. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't think anyone felt the loss more profoundly than my buddy up here. John, when did you know that you wanted to write a book?
Well, Bill was always joking, you should write this stuff down that I'm telling you, one day. And I'm like, yeah, okay, one day. But I wanted to tell the great side about Bill, the side that a lot of people don't know. He was shy, he was quiet, but he was funny as hell. I mean, I didn't work a day in the 20 years I worked at the times when I worked him. He was a pain in the ass, I admit that. We had our little tiffs. It would be so intense doing these pages that's why the art directors didn't want to do them. And I would sit there, and I jokingly one day said, I need some whiskey, and someone sent me a St. Bernard with a bottle of whiskey. So that worked out good for us, but it was this nephew-uncle relationship that we had. I can say anything to him, he could say anything to me, but if someone else got involved in our conversation, if you said anything negative about me, you were dead to him. Some lady one time jokingly, when I choked him in that documentary, he fell into my hands, as I remember. Some lady said, that brute choked you. And he goes, my dear, that is a dear personal friend of mine. Don't ever say anything bad about him again. And he did that every day. We just had so much fun just doing those pages. So
our mutual friend Alex Liebenthal makes an introduction. And I think it's very appropriate that the very first time that we met in person was on Bill's own hallowed ground, the conservatory garden at Central Park at the Hat Luncheon.
Right.
And here's the lady that helped make it happen. Beautiful Alex Liebenthal, in a dress that I actually designed for her to wear to the Botanical Garden Gala. And when John and I first started chatting, I suggested that we start the process by doing conversations about Bill and their personal and professional relationship, and that out of those talks, a book would emerge. So we talked and talked in Chicago, Southampton, Bellport, right here, of course, to anyone that would come and listen. And with each lecture, we learned more about each other and, of course, about Bill. We had such an extraordinary angel on our shoulder. And finally, when we really thought that the book wasn't going to happen, it did. And this is my 7th book, but it's your first.
My first thing.
And
it's very hard. Never do a book. It's not your last. I'm sure of that, John. I'll tell funny stories in the book. All the things that are not PG.
This has been an amazing journey, and I know that Bill is most definitely smiling down upon you, along with all of you here gathered to celebrate his wonderful legacy.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you.
So thank you, Stephen and John and Amy. And now we invite all of you to join us upstairs for book signing, where I know the conversations and stories will continue. Thank you so much.